talking about Conor. That's all we do on here. Jesus Christ. And then, of course, I have to talk about him because you bring him up, and then I'm making headlines because I'm talking about him. Yeah, all right, if we're going to talk about Conor for a second, let's do that. I don't know. What do you think he's doing right now? After earning around 100 million, what do you think he's doing right now?
I think he's jerking off into stacks of money. He's lighting dollar bills.
Do you think he's going to fight again by the end of the year?
No, not by the end of the year. I think Conor's going to sit out for a little while. You told me I was stupid because I guess I just read. This is what I do. I just read headlines, and then I take them as news, and then I deduce the rest of the story just based off the headline. So I read that Conor suffered mild traumatic brain injury, and then I was like, oh, we should talk about that on the show. And then you were like...
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you did say that. You said, Conor suffers minor traumatic brain injury. And I'm like, dude, that's a non-story. But, all right, but I guess now we are talking about it. So the story goes is that a doctor, I don't even know if he was there or he just watched it on TV, and he said that Conor showed signs of, mild brain trauma in the fight because he was kind of wobbling around all over the place. He said if you get, if you're just tired, like Conor said he was, then you just react slowly. You don't wobble around. And I felt like saying, well, I guess the doctor may have a point, but also at the same time, has that doctor ever been punched in the head whilst absolutely fucking gassed and tired and exhausted? Because if you're trying to stay on your feet but you've just been punched and you're very tired, you will wobble. So I'm not a guy that blindly jumps to Conor's defense, but I kind of feel I need to defend that there because I don't agree with that assessment whatsoever. If you're very, very tired and you're trying to stay on your feet and a guy's trying to knock you down, I think it's fair to say that you will wobble a little bit. As we said last week, Conor did get, knocked from pillar to post, and it was fatigue and it was taking punches to the head. But I think saying that he had mild traumatic brain injury, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but that sounds like a stretch.
Well, it's clickbait because, and this is from your favorite MMA Mania. It really is because I start reading the article now, and it's exactly what you said. It was a doctor who was he's a longtime ringside physician, Dara O'Carroll, and I guess the doctor had said. Dizziness or loss of balance is one of the hallmarks of a concussion, a type of mild traumatic brain injury. Now, when you write mild traumatic brain injury, that sounds very like, oh my God, brain injury.
Yep.
Concussion is something we've heard 100 times before in fighting, so it's not as foreign of a phrase. It doesn't sound as dramatic. When you hear those words and you read that, you go, oh my God, it's crazy. But the reality of it is, he was concussed. I don't know. Yeah, I assume anytime somebody's knocked out or TKO'd, they get a concussion. Is that not the case?
I don't know. I mean, you think after all these years involved with this sport, I would know that. But I'm not sure what the definition of a concussion is. And I'm also not sure. I don't know. I would say if you're knocked unconscious, I'm going to go out on a limb and say and guess and make an educated guess that you are suffering some kind of concussion. If it's to the point where you are knocked unconscious, it has to be a concussion, but you don't necessarily have to be knocked unconscious. You hear about a lot of fighters getting concussed in training, and then they have a lot of problems. Who's that one fighter right now that still to this day can't compete? Because I think he took some heavy shots from TJ Dillashaw at Team Alpha Male, if I'm not mistaken. I forget the guy's name. Chris Holdsworth, I think that might be him. And apparently he's having concussion or motor function problems. He's just having problems with his coordination, basically. And I think that stems from a concussion. So, yeah, I mean, you see a guy like Conor in that fight falling around the place. Yeah, okay. Concussion doesn't sound as bad. I'd agree with that. I mean, at the end of the day, that is the problem with boxing, and that was why maybe some people were saying, is that fight even legal? Of course, Conor, first ever professional boxing fight. And there's way more deaths, injuries, concussions in boxing than mixed martial arts. Again, I'll say it. I think it's 13 to 15 deaths per year, which is unbelievable. I mean, we just heard recently about the MMA fighter Tim Hague went over to boxing, sadly lost his life afterwards. So that was a concern. And I guess the referee, when he saw him falling around like that, that's why there was no arguments from Conor or anyone really when the referee stopped that fight.
Yeah, the official definition of concussion is temporary unconsciousness caused by a blow to the head. The term is also used loosely of the after effects such as confusion or temporary incapacity. Yeah, I mean, look, I think we're right about that. I think if it's called a TKO or a KO, I mean, you would assume that the person would be concussed. It's very funny that MMA Mania, they kind of run that, and it becomes just something that people click on, and that's a problem, I think, with MMA.
Lewis, I have to ask, are you getting a little side deal of MMA Mania? Because every single episode, you are mentioning their website.
Well, I'm in the process of trashing them.
Shitty website. Listen, if you got a nice little side deal going on, good for you. Just cut me in, buddy. Cut me in on the deal. Come on.
Look, I'm in the process of actually trashing them, it's not even just of them, but a lot of MMA sites, they really do. They create these clickbait type articles, and the truth is nobody has enough time to spend their days reading through every single article. So when you go to an MMA site and you're looking for shit to talk about in a show like this, or even just any site, I do multiple podcasts that aren't even MMA related, you fall for this bullshit. And I think with MMA it happens more than anywhere else.
Yeah, well, no, you're absolutely right. And I would say certainly MMA, because I think, and I'm not trying to offend all MMA journalists, but what is the level of journalism in MMA? I mean, of course, there's some very, very credible journalists, but there's also a lot of guys. If you have, if you got an iPhone, you got a laptop or whatever, and you got access to the internet, which everybody has these days, you can call yourself an MMA journalist. Do a little blog, do a little tweet, Instagram, whatever. All of a sudden, you're a journalist. So everybody's trying to get stories. So they're taking things out of context, and they're spamming everybody basically. And I guess, I mean, as you say, MMA is definitely up there. I would say the main one would be Donald Trump. I mean, CNN. I mean, they just cover him 24/7 and looking to spam him, whatever. I mean, I'm not a Trump supporter. That's not what I'm trying to do here. Stick up for Trump. But I'm here complaining that MMA Mania and all these other shitty websites break down everything I say. Jesus Christ. I do feel sorry for Donald Trump a little bit there.
Yeah. I think that it happens with you all the time. I mean, with this show specifically, what's the worst thing?
No, it does.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think the worst thing that you've taken out of context and spun on like some site or whatever throughout the years?
What was the question? Sorry.
What do you think the worst thing that they've ever taken out of context that you've said?
I don't know. There's so many, but it's on a weekly basis. I mean, as you know, on this podcast, all these little YouTube accounts, they go away and they take it down and they break them up into nice little clips with a nice little segment, But anytime I say anything negative, so I mean, and most of the time, if you listen to this podcast, I'm having a laugh for the most part. But but they love to take it out of context and whatever. Everyone's trying to get ahead in life. But here's something you can take out of context, or you can't take out of context. Tyron Woodley can kiss my ass.
What do you do now?
Well, no, he's just constantly calling me out. Did you see that? I once again, Tyron Woodley calling me out, saying I want to step up and fight Bisping. Recently, after the Damian Maia fight, he was like, I'm out here, I'm fighting the best, I'm doing this and that. We got Michael Bisping ducking the top contenders, faking a knee injury and avoiding Yoel Romero. Now, I'm not even going to go into how that's wrong on many, many levels, but he did that then, and now once again he's saying after this fight he wants to step up and fight me or GSP, which is fair enough if he wants to do that, but it ain't going to happen, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's I don't know exactly what it is, and we've talked about Tyron a lot on this show, but I almost feel like Tyron, he reminds me of my ex. My ex would never stop and smell the roses. She would never just like say, hey, you know what? We're here. We're in love. We got a good life. We're living in New York City, living our dreams. It was always, what's the next problem to fix? What's the next thing that's going wrong for this relationship, for our life? And it was always something to fix, and it gets tiring after a while. And I feel like Tyron is like, Jesus Christ, dude, you're a new UFC champion. You're a guy that, to the fan base, it's not like you're like a household name yet. You're still kind of, he's extremely talented. I think Tyron Woodley is a really marketable fighter. I think he's extremely talented. But the problem is every time there's a microphone put in front of him, it sounds like he's bitching about what he doesn't have. And it's like, yeah. I don't know, dude. I grew up fucking poor. I grew up with, my dad was murdered when I was a kid. We were talking about blue collar fighters before. It's like, I look up to the guys who fucking, bite down on their mouthpieces, put their fucking chins down, and just swing when the going gets tough. And it seems like Tyron is just, dude, me, give me more, and it just isn't super relatable.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I don't want to turn this into an episode of where we're just trashing Tyron, because I like Tyron. I like him a lot. In fact, I'm working with him this Friday on Fox TV, on Fox Sports, on the Wayne Show and the pre-fight show.